I'm Pradeep Chawla. I am an ex-seafarer. I sailed for 17 years and I'm now, for the last 26 years, I've been working in Anglo Eastern ashore. We are a ship management company that operates over 650 ships with a crew pool of 28,000 seafarers. And I have been a member of Nautical Institute and still am. I've been a vice president and a council member, and now I am the chairman of Global Met, which is an association of training institutes around the world. I think what most people in the world do not realize is that this invisible industry is what keeps food on their plates. And when we are having a drink from, whether it's Coca-Cola or beer from Belgium, nobody thinks about it, that how did it land on my table? Particularly in COVID-19, when the supply chain has become so important to get medical equipment across from one part of the world to the other, when it is very important that the food supply chain keeps working, it's all the more important that we are able to tell the world about our industry, which is really the backbone of all progress in mankind has done in the last 500 years. Significant amount of effect on all our seafarers. There are wonderful stories about how people have continued to do their work in a professional way in spite of not being relieved. There are people today out at sea who would have completed 10, 12, 13 months on board. We also have quite a few sad stories where people have been unable to reach back home. We have had a case where a seafarer's wife has died and we are unable to get him home. A person who couldn't reach for his own wedding twice over now. It's been rearranged twice and he still can't get home because India is still locked down. And the anxiety that it is causing to the seafarers is quite concerning for us. And I have another big concern that the seafarers are kind of like a forgotten population, that nobody's considering what would happen if a ship out at sea in the middle of the ocean had a few people with COVID. I have been working with Intertanko to try and get WHO to make some recommendations for additional medicines or equipment that we should be keeping on ships. The scenario of having 3 or 4 people with COVID in the middle of the Atlantic or middle of the Pacific keeps me awake at night. What would happen? How would we look after these people? I think the industry as a whole is working quite well together to try and convince the governments to allow seafarers as key workers, similar to doctors, that we should be allowed to move around and go back home and join ships as essential workers. I think to probably have our voice heard in the corridors of power everywhere, we may have to create more pressure on the world to understand that without our wonderful seafarers, things would be very difficult for the world. Possibly making the world understand what would happen if all the ships were to stop just for 24 hours or 48 hours. What kind of effect would that have on the rest of the world? Well, I am not a doctor, but I can say what my doctor tells me is to keep the immunity up, keep having the vitamin C and the zinc and do, and follow the social distancing, the washing of the hands, etc., etc. But more importantly, I would say that as seafarers, we can bring about our spirit of resilience and our professional pride in doing an essential job for the world. Happy that we are contributing to the betterment of the world in these very difficult circumstances. I would like all our associations and all the unions and everybody just to work together, not look at individual state, city, country, but look at it that this is a problem for the world. And as seafarers and ex-seafarers and associations that represent seafarers, we need to be able to show to the politicians what working together means.